Today I am going to start some rescaping for my frog vivarium. I have some poison dart frogs in here, which you probably won't see. And I've had this tank for a few years now. It's gotten quite grown in. It definitely could use a trim, but it actually kind of needs a full rescape. If you can see this background that it came with, it's just a piece of foam that was kind of carved and then had cocoa coir on it. But that has now basically completely deteriorated. You can see back here, it's all starting to kind of come apart. So when I say rescaping, it's mainly the background that needs redone. But the other thing I want to kind of address, so just the way that it is structured. Basically in the back, you might not even be able to really see that. Basically this back piece is like a big hollow piece of cork, which I mean, it's an awesome piece of cork, but the problem is that this whole kind of back area, I think, is underutilized. I do want to get rid of these bromeliads. They are nothing special. I think I got them from IKEA when I first set up my vivarium. And I kind of just feel like they're blocking a lot of space that I could use for other plants. In particular, I really like my miniature orchids. This one's actually flowering right now. We're starting to flower. So I want kind of more wall space that I can mount those on. At the moment, they don't really get watered, so none of them, they're not doing as good as they could, and I just feel like it would be easier. It would be easier if I didn't have these bromeliads. I also have some plants growing on this cork because cork seems to be like a really great substrate for most terrarium plants, but they're kind of being shaded by the bromeliads and not really getting the care that they need. Now this piece that kind of goes like an S shape. So this is actually like two pieces of cork that I've just propped together. And this kind of fallen log, I really love the way that it looks, and it's starting to grow in really well. I have some miniature ferns that are starting to kind of spread and colonize across the whole log. This one is a different one as well. This is Elaphoglossum peltatum, which is also starting to spread, which I absolutely love. Like, I love the variety of moss that is on there. I have some great species that have kind of established themselves. So this log in particular, I really want to leave pretty much as is. What I'm thinking is that I might move it over to the other side so that it's kind of almost more like propped up against that side, because this little area in here, like I do have some begonias growing, but this isn't like, this is kind of a spot that just gets neglected. So I'm thinking like open up that area, take out this big log in the back so I have more like floor real estate, and then make better use of kind of the back wall to have more places to like mount plants, and with more of like a cork background. Hopefully it should be easier for other species to grow on the background instead of just this like Ficus pulmilla, which is great and all, like it is, I do love the way it looks, but it's nice to have the variety, right? Like this is really what I like. The other issue I've been having with my vivarium, so I have some root mealybugs in here. I've discovered them on a few plants, and I've kind of just been removing the plants as I can. Now, I have introduced some rove beetles and some nematodes, which I do think have helped, but without tearing everything out, it's kind of hard to know. I don't want to replace the substrate completely, but you can kind of see those white dots are most likely mealybugs. So in these like localized areas where I find the mealybugs, I want to like be able to take that out and replace it with some fresh substrate. You can kind of see how the background is that piece of foam with the choir on top. It's starting to also like come away from the back. Now this is just what came with this tank when I got it secondhand. And the plan is basically to like take out the existing background and then just kind of like slot in the new background. So I just need to like measure and make sure that fits. That's basically how this background is in. It's not like glued in or anything. That should be okay. I just need to kind of do the hardscape with that in mind. I've also learned a lot since I did my previous vivarium for my crested gecko, Koroks. So this has held up very well. I learned a lot of lessons doing this background. I do need to replace some of the plants in here. The Scindapsus is doing exceptionally well, but it's almost like too tall now. I need to trim it. But just looking at the background, like that method of using expanding foam and cocoa coir and cork has worked really well, and I'm still really happy with this tank. So plan on using the lessons I learned from this tank and hopefully make the one for the frogs even better. It'll be a little bit different because this is not like a super high humidity tank, so you don't really get stuff like growing on the background. But for the frog vivarium, I know I absolutely will. Hi, Korok. You in there? Are you sleeping? There he is. He's sleeping under the plants. Okay, I'll leave you alone. So yeah, that is the plan. So overall, this build went way better than when I did the rescape for Korok's tank. I learned a lot of lessons doing that background. So this time it was a lot smoother. Instead of taking me 2 days, this was only about 5 hours. I was able to do the whole thing in 1 day. It's still a lot of work, but not as bad. I already had this foam background from that project, which was very convenient because for the frog tank, it was actually perfect that I could just slot it in where the old foam background had been. Right now, I'm just positioning and kind of playing around with the pieces of wood that I purchased to see how I wanted everything. I got a really good suggestion in my last video to use nails to kind of prop things up and keep them in place before they're secured. That was a great tip. I still had some problems with things falling over. I also started with the foam standing up, and that was just dumb. I realized very quickly I was just making things harder on myself. So once I laid it down on its back, then things started to go a bit better. I did have some inspiration photos, and I even did some sketches of what I kind of wanted the background to look like. But the problem with that is it's always going to be a little different depending on what you're able to get your hands on. For example, I kind of wanted more viney branches. I was looking at ghost wood and some other types of wood like that, but I just couldn't get that locally. So I ended up with this Mopani wood, which is good, and I am happy with how it turned out. I'm just a big believer in using what you have. This was one of the most time-consuming stages. There was a lot of back and forth, trying multiple different arrangements to see what the optimal was. And I do like what I ended up coming up with here. The problem was this was all the wood I had. The majority of what I had to cover the background was cork. So then I realized if I started to try and fit the cork in around, I was going to end up covering up a lot of the wood. So I ended up removing it and doing the cork first instead. Needless to say, there were a few frustrating moments in there. It was also like 30 degrees Celsius outside and very humid. So I was not having a great time the whole time. It was fun, but it was very hot. I am glad I did it outside though, because it really helped with the mess and also just not having to worry about the fumes from some of the foam and stuff. So I'm glad I did it outside and I had a space to do it, but it was warm. If you're curious, this cork bar cost me around $50 and the Mopani wood, I think, was like $20 to $30. It wasn't crazy expensive. I also didn't get a lot, and I prefer working with smaller pieces that you can kind of just piece together, and then you're also not paying for waste if you end up breaking off some pieces or having to manipulate a large piece to make it work for your space. Now, the number one lesson I learned when doing my previous build: when using expanding foam, wear gloves and do not wear good clothes. This stuff is nasty. I am using I think it's the DAP Pond and Stone foam, which is black. There's also a great stuff one that a lot of people use, but I couldn't get my hands on that locally. The stuff is pretty much the same. The only thing I noticed, so I tried putting the cocoa coir on directly here because that's what I see other people doing, but it cured way too quickly. You see me dump it off and it barely stuck at all. On the package, I think it said not tacky in 15 minutes, which, I mean, makes sense. And probably the heat made that even faster. But yeah, it was not great for putting the coir on directly. The flip side of the fast cure time, I think it said fully cured in 3 hours. Now, that meant I could go and carve it down pretty quickly. I just went inside, had a bit of a break to cool down, and when I came back, you can see some of the inside is still tacky, but the outside, most of it I could carve after about an hour. It was set up enough for that. So that was nice. That allowed me to do this project all in one day. I am very glad that I carved it down. It really helped with the three-dimensional look that I was going for. Because this stuff expands so much, it kind of ends up being all the same level as the cork, which is fine if you want that, but that wasn't the look I was going for. I wanted lots of places where I could stick plants in, not have it just be flat. So carving it down was definitely the right call. It would have been less frustrating if I had actually had a good X-Acto knife with a sharp blade, but I just used what I had on hand. I should have picked up more when I was at the hardware store, but I didn't. I also just used my fingers a lot to rip out certain pieces, and it all worked. This step took a bit of time, but I do think it was really worth it in the end. I could have done a better job and been more, I don't know, thoughtful with how I carved it. I was just mostly worried about getting all of the round lumps off to a more rough surface, more rock-like surface. Then I had to remember how I placed the wood pieces in before. There was still a bit of fiddling and deciding here how I wanted them. One general kind of design tip is that odd numbers, odd groups generally look better. So I was going back and forth between doing like 2 groups of 2 and then one off on its own since I had 5 pieces, but I really wanted to do like 2 and 3 because from a design perspective, I think it works better. So it was just a bit of a puzzle to figure out the best arrangement for these pieces. I also wanted to have them coming forward off of the background so that the background is kind of integrated with the foreground and the rest of the tank. Also, so I could have places to plant things like bromeliads and orchids on where they could kind of hang off, just to give more three-dimensionality to the whole tank, so it's not just background and then the floor, basically. Now, I'm sure I'm the only one who didn't know this, but caulking guns have this hole at the back that you can use to cut the tip off of your tubes. Now, as far as silicone goes, I did not use aquarium silicone this time. I ended up using, I think it's the GE Type 1 silicone. So basically anything that is 100% silicone and doesn't have mold or mildew additives is going to be safe. You want to find something that is acetic acid cured, not neutral cure. From what I understand from my research, both are safe once they're completely cured, but the neutral cure, it uses a different agent and it is more toxic to critters than the acetic acid cure is. It also takes longer to cure, so you're more likely to still have the curing agents off-gassing or doing whatever they do that is harmful. So this stuff, I read on the label that it's cured within 24 hours. I was still noticing a smell after a week and a little bit. So I just waited to reintroduce my frogs into my tank until I didn't notice any of the vinegary smell from the product. Even now, I was still moving stuff around and fiddling with it, and I am happy with the end arrangement, but it did take a while to be really confident in where I wanted all these pieces to go. I ended up using 3 tubes of silicone and a little bit. It does take a lot to cover everything. I was using a spatula to just like squish the silicone in so I didn't have these big globs. And I put the coir on it right away so that the silicone wouldn't start curing and losing its stickiness. Generally, that wasn't really a problem I had with this silicone. I found it stayed tacky long enough that I had no problems with it drying out before I could get the coir attached to it. I did a bit more carving and then just came the very tedious process of making sure all of the black is covered with the coir. I would do a little section, cover it with silicone completely, pour the coir over top. You do want to make sure you're using cocoa coir that is completely dry. I purchased a bag of loose stuff versus getting one of the compressed bricks, and that worked really well. If it's wet, it won't adhere to the silicone. After a section had set a little bit, I would go back with a little air pump. You can use compressed air as well, but I ran out to just blow away the loose extra coir that didn't get attached. So there was a lot of just brushing off the old stuff, tipping the whole construction on its side to have the excess fall off so that I could see which areas I missed and needed to go back to. Also looking at it from a bunch of different angles to see if at the top maybe there were some spots that got missed. It is a bit of a process to make sure everything is covered. It was worth it this time. I didn't have to really go back once everything was cured and try and cover it up with something else like I had to do with Korok's tank. I was super happy with how it turned out in the end. I think even without plants, it looks really good. So I was very, very happy. Hey, so I think my background is done. I've let it cure for like a week, so it should be ready to go now. I'm not moving my tank from where it normally is on the stand because it's like super heavy and I just don't want to risk that. So I'm gonna start probably taking stuff out that I know I don't want to keep, like the bromeliads, and then I'll worry about kind of taking the background the existing background out, putting the new one in, and then we're kind of gonna just see where we're at. So I'll try and be out of the way as much as I can be. Right now, I just wanna get some of this stuff out. I kind of just have a box. I'm gonna throw the stuff that I don't need anymore. River, I don't really need your help. I do not really need your help. So I just put my finger in something gelatinous, and on the bromeliads or some frog eggs. They look like they're viable. My frogs have been like calling up a storm lately, so that does not surprise me. So that is pretty exciting. I am going to go take care of those guys. Okay, I do wonder if I'll find more frog eggs. That is one thing about the bromeliads. They are really good for breeding. And it's not like I don't want any bromeliads, but I feel these ones are just too big. Oh, wow. Oh. These have rebloomed several times for me as well. And they've kind of split into multiples. Oh. Oh, they're all wet. Oh, great. That's actually, yeah, kind of gross. Okay. See how much space those guys were taking up though? Yeah, it smells like really bad and I'm not exactly sure why. There probably are some old frog eggs in there. Okay. You can see how much that background is just completely disintegrated. Let me rip these guys off too. Not seeing too many root mealybugs, which is good. See how thick some of those are? Oh, these are just kind of in the way. So obviously, like, my frogs are a breeding group, and that's great, except if I'm not really actively trying to breed them, because I don't want to, I don't want to have to worry about finding homes for all of these little babies. I have bred them in the past. I've gotten probably over 20 babies. I don't have the exact number. And sometimes with those bromeliads, see the little dairy cow isopod? In those bromeliads, like, I don't always see it when they breed, and the eggs, the tadpoles don't usually live if I don't take them out. Like, it's not, I don't know exactly why. It's just not the right environment for them. It's very easy for them to get contaminated and go moldy and all of that. Thought I would just take some of these begonias out, but it's kind of not working. You can see this is like, look how messy that is. And I have to assess and see if there's root mealybugs on there. So a lot of these I'll probably like take cuttings of when I put back. Okay, let's just stick you down here. Kind of just dumping everything into a box right now, and we'll deal with it later. Like I said, I want to keep this big log pretty much intact the way it is. But the problem is I want to take this big log out, but it does have a few species in there that I want to keep. Some stuff I'm not worried about, like the ficus or the moss or the uncinata. There are some fern species that I think I only planted here, like this little epiphytic fern. Yeah, okay, that's good. Nice. Oh my goodness. Okay. Oh, I see a frog in there. I know, buddy, I'm ruining your home. I'm sorry. I'll put it back. I promise. Poor little guy is so scared. think that's Dig Dug. That's the other problem right now is like I never actually get to see the frogs because I give them such a perfect hiding place. I'm sorry, buddy. Yeah. Last time I rescaped this and I ripped everything out down to the substrate. Do you think I could find the 4 frogs that live in here? Because I absolutely could not. Oh. Man, those roots are, serious. I think those are mostly the ficus roots that are causing that problem. Okay. That is a big piece of cork, but I feel like it was not really being appreciated in there the way it should have been. Where do I put this now? I should have thought this through. Okay, I'm gonna try and get these frogs. Hello, Dig Dug. Come here, come here. Come here. Yeah, there we go. There we go. Look at that beautiful guy. So that is Dig Dug. He is a dude, I'm pretty sure. He was actually pretty chill. I'm surprised. Frogs. Who said there was frogs in here? That's crazy. Actually, maybe I should need to just take this out too. And there's a frog in there. Of course there is. Okay. Buddy, you want to hop out? You want to hop out? This is Frogger. Oh, there's 2 frogs in there. Okay. Guys. Okay. I can't catch all of you at once. Okay, Frogger, you first. Come on. Come on. Don't want anyone jumping out here. Man, they disappear so quick. Okay, there's nobody inside here, right? It's the problem. Once they know you're looking for them, you will never find them. This is a maidenhair fern, was a maidenhair fern, but I don't think it's really what I want anymore. It's not really the right thing. All right, Frogos, where are you hiding now? Where you go? All right, all right, all right. Come on, come on, come on. There you go. There you go. All right. This is Frogger. You can identify Frogger by the line on his back. And again, I think he is a male. I think I only have 1 female. And I really only know that because sometimes I see them calling. This is Galaga. Man, their tummies are so pretty. So you can tell it's Galaga because she has like a circle kind of on her side. And it's cute because some of her babies have that same like circle on the side. And I know she's the female, I think 'cause she's a little bit bigger, and all the other frogs, when they're calling and stuff, seem to be trying to impress her. So I'm, yeah, quite sure that she's the female. Doesn't she look really fat? Like, doesn't she look like she has eggs in her or something? Like, she looks kind of preggo to me, but I don't know much about breeding frogs. So I think if I start ripping these guys out. Who's the last one in here? Who do I still need? Oh, Tetris. I think Tetris is the last guy. Come on, Tetris, where are you? Sometimes it's hard to tell if there are actual mealybugs in here or not because I put calcium on the fruit flies that they eat. So you kind of have this white speckly stuff and it's hard to tell. I should have put gloves on because I hate the feeling of dirt on my hands. Where are you, buddy? Where'd you go? Oh, there, you're hiding right there the whole time. Okay, buddy. Come on, come on. It's okay. Yeah, you're okay. There we go. All right, so last one, that is Tetris. Tetris doesn't have any like super distinctive markings. He just has a very kind of like balanced pattern on him. Kind of hard to show you without also letting them escape. He's all squished down because he's scared. I think while I'm here, I honestly am going to take out a lot of this substrate because I think it's starting to break down and it's not the greatest for my plants. I'm just gonna check. So this is my drainage layer. This is where I thought I had seen some of the mealybugs, but I actually think it's pretty okay. Which is kind of a relief. Like, sometimes the roots grow into this drainage layer, so I'm just gonna try and take some of those out. But actually, there's nothing wrong with that. Now, honestly, I think I can just tip this out because it's not really attached to anything. Nice. Cool, cool, cool. See all the roots on the back of there? Oh. Well, that was really easy. I mean, I'm covered in stuff, but that's okay. Ficus likes to grow on the whole lid. River, could you hold those for me? Okay, can we like take a second to just appreciate how good this looks? It was definitely a tight fit, but I think that's a good thing because it's really gonna stay in place and I won't have to worry about plants or critters getting in behind, which is awesome. That is exactly what I wanted. So now I'm just gonna replace some of the substrate. If you remember when I did the rescape for Koroks tank, I actually had a bunch of substrate left over that didn't fit, so I'm gonna use that. I don't know why River is going crazy right now. I think I have some coconut chips that I'm just gonna add in as well for some extra volume. I'm gonna add some fir bark as well. So priority number one is how is this guy going to fit in? Yeah, I like that because it doesn't cover up too much of the background that I like spent so long making. So the other thing I bought was just these like bendable wire things that I was planning on adding as well to kind of like tie the background and foreground together. I will say I'm pleasantly surprised. I washed off a lot of these roots and I did not find really any mealybugs, which is awesome. That means my nematodes that I applied worked. So that is a big win in my book. Now, my goal this time around, I want this ficus to be more of like a ground cover and not go completely crazy on the background, because I am worried that when I have to go and rip it off, it's like not going to, like it's going to take off the rest of my background with it that I worked so hard on. So I'm going to try and hopefully get it to take more as a ground cover this time. What I really like more than that stuff is this, sometimes it's called string of frogs. It's the Pumila oak leaf variety. That I think I like better than this one. So I want to try and introduce more of that. This is one that I imported from Ecuagenera recently that has done really, really well, just a cutting. Now this one has gone kind of crazy. This is I think they might call it a seersucker plant. He obviously kind of needs a reset anyways. I think I'll do those kind of at the back where you see it less behind the cork, since it isn't like my favorite plant ever, but obviously it does well in here and it's, if nothing else, like a good filler. These were all the species that were kind of growing on the log beforehand, but maybe I can kind of get that growing on the background instead. This is a little Margravia species, umbrellata or something, I think. Let's put you there. I could be like pinning these guys in if I really wanted to, but I don't think that's necessary. This air plant, I don't know if I even like him, but he's just been chilling in here for a long time. So he can stay for now because he's not dead yet. But you go up there. I have this little Labacia, I think it's Labacia, turtleback, which was not doing very well because he just wasn't getting any light basically before. So now is a chance for him to actually grow. I have this orchid. I honestly forget what type it is now, and I don't really care if he lives or whatever. I kind of just stuck him in here before to see how he would do, but I guess you can go back there. This is supposed to be a Lepanthes variety. Honestly, maybe I should just mount him directly, but then I can't move him around if he's not getting enough water. Good enough for now. It's just better if I leave them in their original mounts so that I can move them around if I need to. It often happens that they just don't do as well as I've hoped that they would. So it might look kind of silly with these dangling, but just trying, okay? That guy is quite pretty. You know what? He is kind of falling off anyways, so why don't I try just planting him? And I have a little bulbophyllum monophyllorm, I think. Next, maybe I'll deal with all these begonias. These were doing like, well, as you can see, kind of, they're all over the place. They've been doing well, but they don't need to be, I don't need that much stem. So I'm just gonna cut off the growing pieces, and I could propagate them, but I don't think these are worth very much. Maybe I'll put them up for free or something. Really don't think I need that much of this in my vivarium, but oh well. And I'm gonna plant those ones towards the back because I already know they get quite tall. I got that actually at the botanical gardens in Montreal. My general rule with terrarium plants, especially for this vivarium, because the conditions can be very unpredictable, I find. Stuff can do really well and then all of a sudden it just dies. So I try and keep a backup of all my plants that I plant in here. I try not have the only copy be in here unless it's obvious that it's, you know, really doing well. Because otherwise it just seems like that's a way to lose them. And that's happened to me a lot. You'll notice that my Biophytum sensitivum is not in here. That's because it didn't make it. So I just seem to have more success when I don't fully rely on the plants that are in here. It's another really cool epiphytic fern species that I don't think was really shown off very well last time, but actually it's looking really good. Doing better than I thought. I love that actually. Here's a very cool epiphytic fern that I got from the Ontario Plant Show. Again, I'm not sure how well it's going to do, so I'm just going to plant it. I think I'm going to put it in here with its pot and everything. There's actually a pot in here of this Elaphoglossum peltatum. I did exactly the same thing, but you can't even see it anymore because the moss and everything has grown in around it. Other than that one orchid I can't find, I think that's mostly it for the ones I wanted to replant. Where did that one go? Why are my orchids like just disappearing? Not crazy though, right? Like he was right there. He was hanging right on there. Where could he have even dropped? Oh, he's right here, okay. Dude, how did you even get over there? I'm gonna add some cuttings of this creeping begonia I got since it's doing really well. It's definitely big enough that I can cut it. I already have some on here, but it's not doing as well. Sometimes it's a bit hard to put plants in places they don't outcompete each other. That does happen a lot. And I don't want to overplant because I know that these plants will spread if I just let them do their thing. Let's see if this guy will want to grow in here, maybe. When it comes to moss, a lot of this I've gotten as aquatic moss. You get them in like little cups. That has been pretty successful for me. Some of it actually grows a bit too fast, and I have to be really diligent about cutting it back and stuff. Like some of this stuff up here, it actually grows a bit too fast. So I'm not too worried about having the moss in here. Okay, I found him. There. I think I have some more random moss and stuff. This was stuff I was worried it had root mealybugs, so I treated it. Why don't I put you back in there? Nice. Cool. Now let's give everybody a good soak. Okay, I think that's okay. I always find it a bit of a challenge to position my sprayers so that they actually hit everybody. Some people end up getting too wet and then others don't get enough moisture, but I mean, that will be a bit just of trial and error with this new setup. I'm sure I'll keep fiddling with it some more, so I'm sure it will look different by the next time you see it, but I'm already really, really happy with the way that looks. Okay, so here we are a couple weeks later. Sometimes I just have to sit with a design for a while to see what it needs, how I need to change things. So what I ended up doing is, from the cork from my previous tank, I ended up breaking it up and adding another log on the other side to balance things out and bring the background and foreground together some more. I added an extra support for this log here. I also took a bunch of clippings from the moss and ferns on this log to distribute on the background. After having my sprayers going for a little bit, I can see which areas get wet enough to support the moss, and you can see that the moss is really starting to grow in on its own. Some of the moss, it's been a little bit too dry, but hopefully it will revive, or moss from other areas will spread. Most of the stuff I planted up in this ledge is still alive. I added a nice clump of ferns and moss in this crevice, planted some of the selaginella as well. You can see some of the new growth is starting to come in, and because it's a shaded spot, it's coming in nice and blue. I added this begonia chloristica, which has lost one leaf, but it seems like it's going to root okay. I have a little begonia muna in the back that again has lost a couple leaves, but I think it will end up rooting. These are just cuttings. I have backups if I need. My little Labacia turtleback is one that is not doing very good. I'm hoping it will pull through. I had to move it where it would get a little bit more moisture. I added a begonia soli mutata cutting, again hoping that it will get enough moisture back here. I find it often helps if I let the moss grow in first before adding cuttings. You can see this moss on the ground cover is still alive and moist. A lot of the ficus has died off, and again I think the ground was just too dry. This area right here in particular was too dry. I had some jewel orchids planted here, but I could tell right away they weren't doing very well. So I'll probably see if this moss and ground cover will spread from this more moist area in the back to the front, and then once the moss is there and it retains a bit more moisture, I might be able to plant a few more things here. It is a bit of a process and not everything does well right away. I think I'm going to lose my little bulbophyllum monophyllum because when I had it mounted here, or actually on this guy, it was getting too much moisture, and I've found that these really like to dry out in between, so I've moved them over here, which is a bit of a drier spot. That's just kind of some of the trial and error with a tank like this. Some good news is my Lapanthes seems to be putting out a new sprout, so it is alive. That is really good. I've also been seeing my frogs more with this new arrangement, which was one of my goals. So they seem happy. I'm happy. I've put this little unique Selaginella species in here just to see if it will do okay, but I'm leaving it in its pot just so I can take it out if it seems like it's not loving this environment. Even now with the tank being somewhat new, I'm very, very happy with how it looks. I don't want to get any comments about how the previous tank was better because you just can't compare a tank that has been established for a while with a new one. This is just going to get better and better with time, and as I learn which species do the best where. I hope you have enjoyed seeing the process from more or less start to finish. Please let me know any questions that you have. Thank you so much for watching. If you've made it to this point, I will try and do an update on this tank sometime in the future. Have an awesome day.